Hello, folks, and welcome to HVAC Talk with Huff. I'm Huff. I had something on my mind over this last week or so, and there's when we look at training, there's just so much technical training that we see happening, and it's absolutely wonderful. I mean, some of the YouTube channels and things that you see these days that's been developed, and a lot of time and care has gone into that. Again, I think I mentioned, my last video, HVAC school, AC service tech, Measure Quick, ESCO. There's just so many great resources out there, and there's also some individual techs that kind of record what they're doing on a job site, and they show how they were able to troubleshoot a particular device or whatever the case may be, or a particular style unit or component. And they explain that. Then I look at the comments, and people are always like, "Man, thank you so much for showing that." And so technical training is absolutely necessary, and the core fundamentals. I think there's just I don't know, somehow we've kind of lost our way with that. And I'm so thankful for things that are coming along, with the advancement of technology that can use things like Measure Quick and stuff like that to help. But what's been on my mind is I'm a technical trainer, so I do teach those things. But something that I've found that is really lacking is not only technical training, but have you ever heard the term soft skills? Right, hard skills are the skills that are related to our trade. It's just, I guess, the easiest way to explain it, and maybe that's oversimplistic, but I think you get the idea. Soft skills are those skills that you can use in any trade. It has to do with your intrapersonal, right, person-to-person type of skills, as well as how you conduct yourself. And so, I kind of did a search, and you'll see like what's the top 7 main soft skills or top 6 main soft skills, and you're going to see things mentioned such as communication, active listening, right? You would think they're the same, but they're not. Communication is like, what am I sending out? Active listening is, what am I taking in? I'm reminded often, and I quote it often, the Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And one of those points and one of those habits is, right, seek first to understand and then be understood. Most people are listening just so they can respond. And so being able to truly take in the information, also leadership skills, problem solving skills. It's not just about, where to put your meter, but, how to think out the process, right? Deductive reasoning, right? When you deduce, right? So I don't know exactly what the problem is, but I can start deducing, taking away things that I can check that eliminate them out of the equation, right? I can eliminate the possibilities by doing one at a time, testing the things that I do know how to do, and sometimes come down to the what's left over kind of thing. Deductive reasoning is what they call that. Time management. It's amazing. I was on a job site not too long ago, and technician sitting on a bucket, which, hey, ain't no problem. I got a bucket seat myself. But he's sitting on the bucket, and he's watching the vacuum gauge, and tools are spread out all over a hex half acre. You know what I'm saying? And there's so much. I'm like, hey, you need some help carrying these things back? No, I'll get it when I'm done. I'm like, well, this time that you're sitting here watching this pump, you could actually have all that cleaned up, and you could be off this job earlier. And I don't know if he was trying to milk the clock or what the case may be. I don't know, but I looked at that. I'm like, that's just it's a bad management of time, right? There's, what happens if he maybe gets another call added to him, right? Now he's like, oh man, I drug my feet here. I could have been ready. It's just, time management is a big issue. I just see that kind of falling by the wayside. Also our attitude, right? It's not just enough to do the job, but what about the attitude that we have when we're doing it, right? And what does that say about me as an individual, also the company I work for? These things are all important. So soft skills is something that I see a lack in that I think we need to talk more about. We have more ways to communicate today than we've had ever. I can remember when I was in the field and we had pagers. And a number would come across the beeper, and you would have to find a payphone. Or if you were on a construction site, you'd have to find a job trailer that maybe had a phone in it. And I remember us having an 877 number to call back to the office, so it was toll free. And then we got alphanumeric pagers. Y'all remember those babies, right? Where you could actually type a message, and all we thought that was something you could send me the address instead of me having to write it down. You just think about, how and we also had two-way radios in our truck, and too many people got in trouble with saying things they shouldn't. But anyway, it's a long story. Then later on we graduated to Nextels. We thought that was just amazing. Beep, beep, the chirp kind of thing, and then you get your message, we're talking two-way, and now we have too many ways. We got email, text, and so much is done on a digital front that when it comes time to just have a face-to-face conversation, which is still valuable, it seems that a lot of people just kind of flounder in that. I found over the years, when I was doing a class as the OEM, tech support guy, and we would offer a class, you may end up with 35, 40 techs in a class, and representing 20, 25 different companies. And I found a lot of times, some people would ask questions. There was always the few forward people that would ask questions, but a lot of people would just never ask anything. And they certainly didn't want to let in that they either didn't understand what you were talking about or that they had concerns or whatever. But then I find that when I go to a specific contractor's place where all the techs know each other and they're comfortable with one another, the questions are a lot different. And so recently I was teaching about dehumidification and going over psychometrics and really trying to break it down very slowly. And one tech says, Huff, you know what our big problem is? I get it. I don't know how to explain it very well. Like relative humidity. That relative humidity is a measurement of the humidity that is present based on how much the air can hold, right? Relative humidity, right? So 50% at 75 degrees is different than 50% at 65 degrees. And so we talked about how to explain that concept, and it just kind of a light bulb went off on me is that, we talk about these fundamental things, but then we don't talk about, when we're sitting in front of the end user, how can we explain this best that they could understand? These things are important. And so soft skills is something we really need to kind of get back and have somewhat of a focus on as well, and add that to our repertoire of training. How to listen. It's amazing. I used to tell technicians all the time, ask the customer questions and don't ask them yes or no questions. Ask them open-ended questions. Like, did you hear any, describe any sounds that you may have heard. And I was like, well, I didn't hear any. Okay. So can you describe to me, like, what time of day this happens? Is there anything you could think of that may be that happens along with this when this unit goes down? Is there anything else that happens along with that at the same time that's consistent? Right? Just, ask them questions and get them to explain if they, it makes this sound. Well, can you describe what that sounds like? Anything that you can do to get information from them is going to help you in troubleshooting. Secondly, it lets the end user know that you're there to address the situation, that you're not just there thinking this, the homeowner's whacked out, I don't know anything, and I've got this. And I've seen people do that, where they just walk in and dismiss what the customer's trying to say. And here's the deal, they're the customer, they're the one spending out the money. They need to feel like they were heard and like you addressed their needs. There's been times I've been on jobs where they were upset with the noise of a unit, only to find out that it's a variable speed blower in a high static situation. There was nothing I could do to fix that. And I'm standing there representing the brand and explaining that this is kind of how these things work. And then when you crack the door and take a little pressure off and they hear the change, so we showed them that the blower can be quieter, but this is the situation that it's in. But here's the thing, I found that if I listen first and then do the testing and then talk to them about it, they at least were heard. But if we get in there and they start to explain themselves, okay, well, let me just see the equipment first, then we'll talk. That puts them off, right? I found that things go much better if I listen first and let them get all their concerns out so that we can address all those concerns. And there may be an issue we didn't even know about. Or maybe we're there thinking that, A is the problem when the real complaint is B or C instead of A. And I've seen that happen as well. So we have to learn, how to listen. Another thing that kind of comes to mind when it comes to soft skills is, the messaging that you want your company to have, right? And so if we don't, as company owners, right, as business owners and service managers and department managers, if you don't frame the conversation and how you want things explained, then that's left up to the technician and how they feel about it, or the way they see it. And let's just face it, we have some technicians sometimes that, while they may be good people and they are good at troubleshooting equipment, the fact is they don't know how to talk to people very well. And they're not sending out the branding message that you want your company to be known for. And so, these things are important. I've actually received calls where people called the factory because a technician was out to the job, and the unit's 2 years old, 3 years old, was sold to them by the company that this person works for. And yet this technician starts going off on a rant on how this equipment is junk, and how they should have never put this in the house. And I mean, it's amazing some of the things that's been said. And then, of course, we end up getting involved and talking to the business owner, and he's like, I don't even know where that person even got that from. I got to talk to them. We got to figure this out. I'm like, well, not only do you got to talk to them, you and I are going to have to go make a trip to see this end user and stand good for this thing and get this thing figured out and find out what the real problem is, address the needs, and reinstill confidence in this brand. And listen, every brand has its problems at times, but even then, if your company sold that brand, you told them that this is if you sell them the brand, then you think that obviously this brand has some worth. Otherwise, why would you sell them a brand that you don't like and that you think is trash, right? So these things are important, and this is how it comes across sometimes. So even when there is a problem, how do you want that handled? So when you go there and there is a failure in the first 60, 90 days, how do you want to frame that conversation, right? And how do you want them to address that? And so these are things that we kind of need to be doing. And I'm sorry if I'm looking down. I made some notes, right? And there are some concepts that folks have a difficult time sometimes explaining, like how auto changeover works on stat. That's not as bad as, setback. Folks go out on the internet and, they look at all these things. They're trying to save money on their power bill. And so now they're taking a heat pump and they're setting it back 5, 6, 7 degrees at night. And, and it's not working. It's costing them more money. But trying to explain that, right? And where are some places like EnergyStar.gov that maybe they can go to and find better information, right? So, what's the branding? What's the message that you want to give, and what are some resources that your company is comfortable, sending out? Because sometimes a homeowner's like, "Oh, you're telling me this, but is there anything else that supports this?" And so there, if you're given the right story and you're telling them the truth, then there obviously will be resources that will help explain that. And maybe you can give them, say, we have a list of resources that are reputable, such as EnergyStar.gov or whatever, that will help explain this, and let you know that what we're telling you is true, right? Explaining dehumidification and what affects it, that can always, that always ends up something. I learned of a company up in Ohio that actually does role playing with their, a lot of times you see role playing as a sales tool, but they actually do it with their technicians as well. If I remember the story correctly, and I think that's great. Listen, we don't like that stuff. It takes us out of our comfort zone. But the simple fact is that we need it. Now, I don't necessarily do role play when I'm doing training, but what I will say, especially when someone asks a question, when I'm like, well, here's the deal. Hit me with what you normally say, and let's talk about that. Let's see what you normally say about this, whatever this concept is that you're asking about. What do you normally say now? And also, what do some of the others say? Let's get an open, let's get an open dialogue here, and let's talk about, how you see things and how you explain them, and let's see what you got, and then we'll talk about how to maybe package that up, either correct some things that they needed correcting, or just cleaning it up to be able to explain better. And then I'll say, hey, you know what I'll do? When I'll jot some notes down, and when the class is over, I'll send you guys a message kind of reminding you of these things to kind of help out. And so, I just find that it seems like these, the newer generations have all these ways to communicate, but they really seem to struggle sometimes. And it's not a knock on them. I just heard way too many times things blamed on, millennials or whatever. It's just, we don't have time for that. And it's, listen, if folks don't get a concept or if people struggle in that area, what about the generation before them? Have we taken time to mentor these folks? Have we taken time to teach them? And what about the art of mentoring, right? Being a mentor to someone. I've had some great mentors in my life, and I am blessed beyond measure because they were active in my life and took a liking to me and helped guide me and teach me the things that I needed to know. And I have basically, trying my best to. I apologize. Something happened up on my screen, and I got ADD. I see something. I'm like, wow, a squirrel. Look at that. Right. And so I'm trying to go back to that being personal with folks, right? And going back to being able to take time with folks and give back as it was given to me, right? Too often we give new technicians a hard time. Of course, we all had to earn our keep. We all had to earn our spot. We've all been sent for a wire stretcher or something like that. I tell a funny story. I was sent for a wire stretcher, and I didn't know no better. I didn't think it was something real, but I didn't want to say anything to the lead guy because who am I? Go out there and I look and I can't find nothing, and I go back and they're all laughing, ha ha ha. And then later on they ask for a duck stretcher. I'm like, yeah, I ain't falling for that stuff again. You ain't getting me with that crap. Well, it turns out there is a thing called a duck stretcher. So, they set me up real good, right? And so we all kind of got to earn our way with that, and that's kind of the part of the camaraderie. But at the same time, not only did they tease me, but they taught me. And so we got to get back to investing, mentoring, caring about the next generation. Don't blame them for stuff. If you haven't taught them, then you can't blame them, right? We need to take the time and to really help hone our interpersonal skills, right? Our communication and our how we interact with other human beings. And so soft skill training, it's an absolute must. I hope you took a little time. Hope this made sense to you. If you've got questions or you want to have a deeper conversation about this and maybe want some help in some areas, my email will be below in the description. Hit me up. I love this stuff. I'm very passionate about it. Not only am I a technical trainer, but I look at this more of a holistic kind of approach. So I'd love to work with you. Have a great weekend. It's actually Friday. Have a great weekend and, stay safe out there and always take care of your family. Talk to you soon.